As the 19th century ground toward its end, a reclusive misogynist wrote page after page at a fever pitch. Fueled by massive amounts of opium and a growing disillusionment with the people around him, their politics, their vanity, and most of all their religion, he produced an astonishing 14 books in 10 years. Despite his fantastic work ethic, the man found no audience. Isolated by his own furious intellect, he eventually went over the edge, suffering a mental breakdown from which he would never recover. Nietzsche, the great prophet of the modern age, died in obscurity just a few decades before it came to its tumultuous conclusion. It is impossible to meaningfully sum up all of Nietzsche's work without hours of lecture and textual examples, but in the interest of brevity, we will say that he was an existentialist. Nietzsche lived in a time marked by fantastic scientific and political development. Throughout the Middle Ages in Europe, the various churches had been some of the primary authorities in any given society. They lent legitimacy to kings, told people how to live, who to marry, what to eat, and sometimes even when to go to war. There were certainly exceptions, but broadly speaking, communities took organized religion very seriously. At the end of the 17th century, the Enlightenment changed all of that. Almost overnight, political upheaval, technological advancements, and the advent of a truly global market changed people's lives and broadened their horizons. Liberty, the idea that a person ought to be able to live according to their own will, increasingly came to define the Western social order. This was, of course, immensely freeing and is generally viewed as a step forward for humanity, but it created a new problem. Left to your own devices to decide who you want to be, where you want to live, and what you want to do with your limited time on this earth, you might begin to fall prey to a gnawing anxiety, one that didn't have the same sting for the medieval man. His life was largely determined by the circumstances of his birth, but at least he knew who he was. Nietzsche felt that the old world had died and humanity was in sort of a transitional state, awaiting the advent of a new sort of person who could thrive in this one. Until then, he wrote, we will constantly be plagued by angst, which has an unwelcome tendency to grow into disaffection and from there to nihilism. Nihilism can mean a lot of things, and the definition tends to vary by philosopher. For Nietzsche, it didn't simply mean the belief that life is pointless. Everybody feels this way from time to time. He defined true nihilism as the rejection of life's intrinsic value, anti-life, a social disease that takes ordinary people and twists them toward evil ends and ideologies that demand death in a world where it's already a guarantee. Nietzsche was far from perfect, but given that 2 world wars immediately followed his passing, and we've only been spared a third because somebody invented weapons that can kill everyone on Earth with the press of a button, it's sometimes difficult to argue with him. With that in mind, we head once again to the land of Olathe. Before we dive in, I'd like to take a minute to thank our sponsor, Atlas VPN. I'm making content as a full-time job these days, so they're really doing me and the channel a solid here. We've teamed up to tell you that you can enjoy Atlas VPN's Christmas discount because now Atlas VPN Premium is just $1.70 a month with 6 months extra, and that all comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Protect your privacy and get many benefits of Atlas VPN for a ridiculously low price. You can take advantage of this deal by clicking the link in the video description below, but be quick as it's a limited time offer. I did some traveling recently and got to fulfill a lifelong dream in visiting Tokyo. The city is famously very safe, but that doesn't mean my hotel Wi-Fi was. No matter where you go, VPNs are important tools for keeping your data and activity secure. Even better, you won't have to worry about getting region locked out of your favorite shows. When using Atlas VPN, as far as the internet is concerned, you're browsing from any one of their servers, located all over the globe. Atlas VPN's UI is clean and easy to navigate, making it a snap to get it up and running on all your devices. And they're all protected under a single subscription at just $1.70 a month plus 6 months extra with a 30-day money-back guarantee. But remember, this Christmas discount is a limited time offer, so follow the link in the video description below.
And now our feature presentation.
Alex Churchland is a suburban schoolboy living at the edge of poverty. For whatever reason, his mother's out of the picture, so he's raised by a collective of older family members who don't seem to have children of their own. One sunny day in the 70s, his Aunt Beth stops by to give him a present, a Grandmaster-level guide to the Velvet Foo fighting style on VHS. He's overjoyed with the gift, and promises to watch it every day. And so he does, spending countless hours honing his martial arts skills in front of the television. We flash forward as he grows into a teenager, attracting the attention of a classmate named Chie. Flash forward again. Chie, her hair dyed black, watches with a sultry smile as Alex, now a young man, runs through his routine. Flash forward again. Alex is a garbage man. Flash forward again. Alex is garbage. A man in a black hat rummages through the mingled trash and bodies, apparently unbothered by the sight. He is shocked, however, to discover that the ragged old man on the ground is still alive. He moves to help, but discovers something underneath him that he's been looking for a very long time. Alex awakens in a shack and is shortly greeted by his rescuer, Joel, who explains that he has found a very rare bullet for his highly unusual bolt-action pistol. He decides Alex is a good luck charm, and when Alex says he intends to move on, Joel offers to tag along. Now that he has what he came for, there's no need to stick around this place. This place turns out to be a garbage island, a minor location from Lisa the Painful that has been greatly reimagined for Pointless. It's a massive hub with a unique culture and a huge cast of original characters, and while most of them wouldn't be out of place in the original game, something about the underlying ethos feels very distinct from Painful, like it's painting a very different picture with the same palette. The story of Pointless stands almost entirely alone. If you're unfamiliar with Lisa the Painful RPG, all you need to know is that a decade or more ago, an event known as the White Flash removed all women from the world. As a result, civilization has collapsed, and the remaining men now scratch out meager existences defined by apathy and violence. A trio of old men gather around Alex as he emerges from the shack. He's the first body to get dumped in the island's mass grave and get back up again. There's briefly the glimmer of an expectation that this might be significant, but these wise men are thoroughly unimpressed by the newcomer. He's not cellophane enough. He doesn't stink right. A garbage messiah, he is not. With that, we're left to our own devices. There is a lot of island to explore and plenty of trouble to get into. This wide open structure is probably why there aren't really any proper guides for this game, let alone for the mods that we're running. So let's talk about these mods. Lisa the Pointless, Part 1, Mystics of Trash and Violence, released in 2016. Developed by Edvinas Kandrotas, the game was meant to be the first in a trilogy. It was very well received at launch, and soon had many fans eagerly awaiting the second installment, titled Fool's Gold. As Kandrotas began development, however, he began to notice what he called a noticeable quality gap between the two games, and so he went back to Mystics and started updating it. But as the months wore on, the update grew in scope until it had become a complete overhaul. Dubbed the Monster Update, it promises to outdo the original Mystics in every way. Unfortunately, the last we saw or heard anything of it was, at the time of this recording, 3 years ago. What we've seen looks great. There's a 40-minute gameplay video that I'll link in the description that really looks like it could be something amazing, but it's been more or less radio silence since then. So why are we playing an unfinished and possibly abandoned game? Because even in its present state, it is very, very good, easily competing with Hopeful in terms of writing, and in my opinion, presenting the most mechanically complex and reactive story out of any Lisa game, fan-made or not. It also comprises a complete story of its own, and even if, God forbid, the series is never finished, it is well worth your time. Fans of Pointless, not content with simply waiting for the developer to deliver, began putting together their own content. Balance fixes, new fights, new quests, new areas, new endings. These were rolled together into a megamod known as Scholar of the Wilbur Sin. Sometime after Scholar's final update, another modder sought to make still more additions, releasing a mod of a mod known as Infinity Unfolds. So here we are, playing what many fans consider to be the definitive edition of the game, a mod of Part 1 of a fan game of an RPG Maker game from 10 years ago. I am normally not big on mods. Death of the author is all well and good, but if I'm going to enjoy a serious piece of media, I generally want the author's vision to remain intact. but Scholar and Infinity are high quality and carefully curated, matching Advenus' unique voice and successfully adding to his vision without compromising or clashing with the story he set out to tell. If you want to just play the original fan game without the bells and whistles, it's easy to find. There's even a link in the description. But in my opinion, you lose nothing with these mods and gain quite a lot. It all blends so seamlessly, in fact, that I'm not really going to be able to call out differences when I see them. I'm excited for Monster Update, but it will likely bury all of this work as it's a complete do-over for Pointless that won't necessarily carry any of the modded content over. It's bittersweet playing the game now, like experiencing a mini pre-apocalypse. Given the game's themes, I can't think of a more fitting time to enjoy it. One of these days, maybe, Chondrotus will deliver and this will all be gone in the blink of an eye. Trashes to trashes, dust to dust. So back to Alex and Joel. The island is immediately wide open for exploration. Despite the 2D perspective, there are all kinds of nooks and crannies to get into, dividing the map into a network of interconnected areas far more complex than their horizontal arrangement might suggest. Perhaps unsurprisingly, Garbage Island stinks. Alex periodically has to stop and throw up, sacrificing a bit of HP every time. One of the locals spots him having trouble and suggests that he go see a man named That Larry Davis if he wants some help getting used to the smell. Alex replies that he doesn't want to get used to this, but it immediately presents an interesting dilemma. Every time our man loses his lunch, he takes a small amount of damage. Healing items are extremely limited in this game, and every hit point counts. So despite Alex's reluctance, we decide to go and get some help. Larry's an old man, even compared to Alex. He sits amidst a great drift of trash, lovingly fondling a garbage bag. The island has no leader, not anymore, but Larry is one of the first to have found meaning in all this mess, and the people here look up to him. Hesitantly, Alex asks his advice, and Larry's answer is that Alex should embrace the garbage. Physically. Like, really get up in there. This is the game's first side quest, if you want to call it that. At points marked by these little hearts, we can get up close and personal with the trash strewn about the island. Well, I mean, if we're exploring anyway. There are plenty of people around, mostly friendly or at least indifferent. As we chat with them, we begin to get a picture of what's going on here. Ben and Percy run a trading post in what could charitably be called the center of town. Normally in Olathe, a place like this would be perfect for storing food and equipment, but not here. These two old-timers are collectors, and they only deal in the most useless junk they can find. The worse, the better. Alex is starting to get it, at least. This appears to be how the people of this island are coping with the misery of their existence. They don't just embrace the garbage, they wallow in it. Filth is a lifestyle, and if they can simply tell themselves that this disgusting heap is a worthwhile place, they can eventually start to believe it. Not everyone thinks this way, however. Scattered around the island in familiar red and blue are a few members of the Rando Army, apparently abandoned here by the main body of their gang, who ran off chasing rumors of a girl so fast that they broke the only bridge out of this place. Pedro is one of those left behind, and unlike many of the others, he's decided to desert and start his own group, the Pedro Army. And of course, rule 1 of gang life in Olathe is that you have to hassle random people who try to walk past you. This is the first fight of the game, and it wouldn't be much of one except that Alex has no techniques and Joel can only taunt, defend, or use items. Joel's gun is tremendously powerful, but given that he only has one bullet, he's not going to be shooting anyone. Alex, meanwhile, is recovering from a brush with death. He can attack using a combo dial like Brad or Beltboy from the other games, but compared to those two, he's quite weak. As I said before, this is one of the deeper and more mechanically engaging Lisa games, in a large part due to this dynamic. In Alex, we have a middling attacker with limited utility, while Joel is a fairly good tank who can't usually deal any damage. On their own, either would be almost useless, but together, they become something special. We can chip Pedro down with Alex's attacks, we can retreat, or we can listen to the advice he accidentally gives us and have Joel throw a bottle at him from the item menu. Joel has a great attack stat despite having no attacks, so his bottle damage is actually quite high. The decision seems simple at first, but it isn't. These bottles are a limited resource, but there's another issue. We only get experience if we kill Pedro outright. He'll flee if we just have Alex beat on him long enough, taking that XP reward with him. Experience is fairly rare in this game, and every little bit has the potential to make a huge difference. It's very possible to get into unwinnable situations through poor resource management, and it isn't always a clear binary decision like this. So you'll want to save often and in multiple slots. Luckily, the game is pretty generous with its crows. We don't get anything for our effort, but it's not like this was worth killing somebody over. Stopping to admire a chalk drawing on a cave wall, Alex meets the artist, Augustus Estrada. The art depicts a fantastic city, and Alex wonders if things might be better there. The older man tells him that he's playing a dangerous game. The drawing's just a drawing, and real happiness isn't something you search for, it's something you can make wherever you are. Eventually, Alex meets a shirtless little man named Georgie, who turns out to be an acquaintance of Joel's. Georgie is something of an entrepreneur, and the only person who regularly comes and goes from Garbage Island. He uses a boat to make supply runs and trade with the locals, and Joel has made a deal to get himself and Alex back to the mainland and away from all this stink. Georgie is a pretty underwhelming party member. His best feature is a taunt, but due to his poor stats, he'll often get flattened immediately after using it. It's still nice to have an extra body, at least. In contrast to Alex and Joel's easygoing nature, Georgie is a mean, uptight little prick. In the first of many state changes on the island, Alex soon discovers that some of the locals have beaten up Augustus, ruined his drawing, and stolen his chalk. This chalk can be recovered from Georgie's tent, implying that even though Georgie frequently leaves the island, he too feels insulted by the idea that things could be any better. Alex hands Augustus his chalk, expecting nothing in return, and the old man tells him that he's too kind for this place. He fixes his drawing, then heads up to the medical shack to sleep off his bruises. Back before the Flash, before the Cold War, before the World Wars, before the Russian Revolution, before Marx, a man named Nikolai Chernyshevsky would write of a gleaming crystal palace, a perfect place made perfect by rational minds bending their will toward a fair distribution of labor and resources which would benefit all. A place that would house and provide for all who dwelled within it, and forever eliminate human suffering. This palace would become a symbol for European utopians throughout the 19th century. The hope endured, and still endures, that someday a world will exist which is not plagued by greed and inequality. That human life and happiness have real intrinsic value, and that deep down, humans can recognize this and, given the right conditions, will naturally want to unite for the common good. To a nihilist, nothing could be further from the truth. Fyodor Dostoevsky, in his 1864 novel Notes from Underground, describes mankind as creatures who value spite over all else. Dostoevsky himself was no nihilist, but he believed that what he saw gripping the world's throat as the 19th century wore on was a sort of toxic individualism that would spoil any utopia just to prove that it could. The book's protagonist scolds the reader, saying, "You believe in the Crystal Palace, eternally indestructible. That is, one at which you can never stick out your tongue furtively, nor make a rude gesture, even with your fists hidden away. Well, perhaps I'm so afraid of this building precisely because it's made of crystal and it's eternally indestructible, and because it won't be possible to stick one's tongue out, even furtively." That's just the way things are on Olathe, I suppose. Perhaps Georgie doesn't want to believe in utopia because he knows he wouldn't be welcome there. During the course of his travels, Alex finds a $1 bill. This seems pretty useless, so he takes it to Ben and Percy. The pair are unimpressed until they discover the bill is counterfeit, immediately elevating it to collector status. They hand Alex an old gummy worm in exchange. One corner of the island has been cordoned off by the rando remnants, who promise to shoot any trash humpers that try to enter their camp. Alex strikes a deal with the sentry, who lets him in exchange for some jerky. Despite their fearsome reputation, the Rando Army is actually pretty chill. They mostly just want to leave, but there's a diplomat down in a cave with an offer for Alex. The army wants 3 jobs done on the island, and they could use an independent contractor to get them done. Alex, needing money and being a helpful sort of guy, accepts. The first job is to kill that Larry Davis. The Rando Army believes, probably incorrectly, that getting rid of Larry would disrupt the locals' infatuation with garbage and allow the army to begin re-establishing order here. Alex has no intention of killing Larry, but he may as well let him know that they're after him. He's interrupted by a frail old man who emerges from deep meditation. He smells something on Alex, and he begs for just a taste. And just like that, he slurps down the entire gummy worm. Dairy Sweets is the 4th party member available on Garbage Island, and he's a hell of a lot better than Georgie. Derry runs on TP, meaning that he needs to charge his meter up before he can use his best abilities. He's fragile, but he can hit fairly hard, inflict bleeding, and buff the party. As long as Joel can keep enemies distracted, he's a decent source of damage that can really help us keep tempo in a fight.
I'm a villain, don't you see? Look at the garbage.
Frank! Just nasty, dude. Are you joking? Oh, my God. No, throw it up in the bathroom. Get out of here.
Go take a break. Go take a break.
The troops are going to be very happy to see that.
As for Larry, he finds the whole assassination plot pretty amusing. He hands Alex his garbage bag, which turns out to contain the long-dead remains of his mother-in-law. The thing is so putrid at this point that it's unidentifiable, but it's not entirely a trick. For Larry, who has become one with the trash, there's little distinction between him and the contents of the bag. It's disgusting and terribly sad, but it does make a twisted sort of sense. There are more bodies off to the west. This is the mass grave where Alex first arrived, and nowadays it's where the residents of the island hope to go when they die, so that they can completely become one with the garbage. It wasn't always this way, though. On the hillside below, a solemn gravedigger keeps watch over an old-fashioned cemetery. There was once a proper town on this island, but then the garbage came, and with it, the garbage insanity that has broken the collective spirit of the people who live here. Derry reminisces over his father's grave. "No matter how bad things are," Mr. Sweets once said, "you can always get down and dirty." Words to live by. The second job is to distribute some proper money. Like everyone in Olathe, the residents of the island have been trading in dirty magazines, but you can't build a proper civilization on that kind of thing. Alex finds 3 rando coins in an envelope containing instructions to hand them out. This turns out to be harder than it seems. The islanders are a suspicious lot and have no love for government of any kind, especially not when it's a bunch of outsiders trying to take away their way of life. But eventually, Alex succeeds in getting rid of the coins. The third job is the most pressing. There's no clean water anywhere on the island, and Rando's people are running low on the bottled stuff. The trash humpers seem content to deal with the constant sickness that tainted water brings, but that's no way for civilized men to survive. There was a town here once, a proper town. They must have had clean water, right? The answer lies below this ledge, where someone has left a note explicitly warning people not to jump. Alex ignores the sign and takes a dive. This is the village of the Fishmen. These secretive creatures are one of the failed results of the Joy Project, but despite sharing an origin with Joy mutants, they're largely peaceful. While Alex can't speak their language, he does manage to trade for a bottle of water with the local barman. And then this happens. On the way out, a baby fish man approaches the group. For some reason, he really seems to take a liking to old Alex, and eventually jumps into his pocket. We have gained a son. Alex returns the bottle, the bag, and the empty envelope to the diplomat, who rewards him with a few much-needed supplies and a rando patch. This marks him as a member of the army. Alex thanks the man, but turns down the offer. He's always willing to lend a hand, but he's not the type to sit around and take orders. The two part on good terms. The patch alone is worth the trouble. Equipping it lowers Alex's stats, but causes him to gain experience more quickly. Given that there are only a small number of battles in this game and we're trying to be as nice as we can, getting ahead by even a single level can make a gigantic difference. There's a bit more to explore here in Rando's camp. A cave to the west houses a mysterious crate, and a gigantic man named Floyd Burnside keeps watch over it. On the hilltop above, Will Killjoy threatens Alex with a flail. The scarred soldier has no love for garbage men, and we can't quite convince him that we're any different. Trading a toilet seat to Ben and Percy, Alex winds up with a collection of family photos. It is initially unclear who they belong to, but the truth comes out when Alex is confronted by an infuriated Bob Versace, who, like many of the others, is upset by the idea that anyone would want to leave this island. Seeing the photos throws the old man off. That's his family. Memories of a time when he didn't think of himself as garbage come flooding back, and suddenly the pain is too much to bear. He runs off to try to suffocate himself in the sweet embrace of cellophane. Bob's family, or what's left of it, is influential here on the island, and runs a sort of religion that has twisted pre-flash fears of a condition called garbage insanity into a bona fide cult. His brother Louis distributes bags and balloons to the island's residents, who wear them to practice for the day they will become garbage for good. So Alex buys a balloon from Louis, because why not? Not long after, he finds a cliff overlooking the deepest part of the garbage, far below, and an idea hits him. Joel worries for his safety and Georgie worries for his sanity, but Alex makes up his mind to dive down into the pit using the balloon to slow his fall, even if he has to go alone. Against all odds, it works. Alex falls down, deeper into the dump until he lands in the ruins of a pre-flash neighborhood. The air is so thick with stink here that it casts a green pall over the landscape. This is it, the heart of the garbage. Alex begins vomiting uncontrollably. It stinks too bad. His curiosity is satisfied, but coming here was a mistake. While searching for an exit, he comes across a gravestone inscribed with the name Sherry von Buckingham. A shovel rests nearby. This must belong to the gravedigger. Most of the buildings down here are stuffed up with trash, but City Hall winds up still being accessible. Here, Alex finds fragments of the island's past. Back before the flash, the former mayor, Gerald von Buckingham, somehow managed to drop the ball on waste management so badly that the town slowly became buried in garbage. While it may have simply been incompetence or corruption, there's a third possibility. On the other end of the island, there are concrete tunnels that seem to exude garbage like some sort of horrible fountain. Nowadays, this is welcomed. In fact, a man in the area says that he came here from Wisconsin, where they used to have a garbage spring that one day became a garbage whirlpool. He doesn't put two and two together, but it's possible that that's where all this trash is coming from. If that's the case, then it might not have been Gerald's fault. There may be some sort of underground river of garbage bringing trash here. A couple of men ambush Alex as he enters the attic. After a tense standoff, he manages to talk them down. Apparently they're involved in some sort of illicit activity, namely the joy trade. The Rando Army has outlawed the use of joy, and these dealers have apparently already had a run-in with the aptly named Will Killjoy. Realizing who they mean, Alex tells them they'd better get out of here while they still can. Alex climbs to the top of the buried town and enters a tunnel. Here, beside a gigantic portrait of Gerald von Buckingham, he meets an elderly man named Gunther Scourge. Gunther, like the rest of the islanders, still blames Gerald for the destruction of their former home. Unlike everyone else, though, he hasn't been able to leave the old town. Alex offers him some words of encouragement, saying it's never too late for a second chance, but this infuriates Gunther, who would rather beat Alex's head in than listen to that kind of optimism. Alex, not wanting to murder a relatively helpless man, simply backs off and tells him to stop. Gunther sits back down in defeat, and Alex leaves the cave. He emerges atop the island, reuniting with his friends and deciding that enough is enough. It's time to leave. He stops by the mass grave to return the gravedigger's shovel. This time he actually manages to convince the man to leave. New beginnings are scary, but anything would be better than this place. Stopping by Larry's spot one last time, Alex informs him that he's gotten intimate with the garbage and he still finds it disgusting. Larry argues that self-loathing is the point, it's better than feeling nothing at all, but Alex disagrees. Whatever has happened to the world, it's still possible to find meaning here, and garbage isn't worth believing in. Larry sighs and tells him that he ought to be moving on. Derry's conflicted. He's long since made peace with his own worthlessness, but there's something about Alex that makes him want to listen, no matter how much it hurts. Exploring the Rando camp again, Alex happens to enter Floyd's cave while the man is away from his post, leaving the mysterious crate unguarded. Rando ordered this crate to remain sealed and under guard at all times. We can't help but wonder what's inside. Basketball jerseys. The four men head east across the trash fields, picking their way past a fallen Soviet satellite. Our first clue that this world has an alternate history from our own. The final gauntlet is patrolled by rag maggots, men who have fully succumbed to the misery here and crawl like mindless worms among the refuse. They aren't particularly dangerous, and they're pretty easy to avoid. The four press on. A tall man with curly hair blocks the way. Alex doesn't know him, but the family resemblance is clear. This is Roland von Buckingham, son of Gerald. His father's legacy has made him an outcast here, but more than anybody else in the island, he believes in garbage as a way of life, and he's not about to let anybody leave. The others speak up briefly. Joel, as it turns out, has no attachment to this place, or its people. He only came here for the bullet, and now that he has it, it's time to go. Georgie's simply angry that anyone's standing up to him, while Derry feels that he owes a debt to Alex and wants to help him in spite of everything. So begins our first boss fight. Roland is not terribly difficult with four party members, but our low levels make things much more difficult than they might be if we'd been a bit more aggressive on the island. Georgie and Joel swap tanking duties while Derry and Alex do whatever damage they can. Roland will do a special attack to the entire party on the turn after he gathers power, so Alex and Joel's dodge abilities come in clutch here. At one point, Roland manages to lay everyone out. It looks like it's all over, but suddenly Augustus shows up with a batch of perfume, restoring the party to fighting condition. He tells Roland that he's ashamed to have ever stood up for him, which brings the man to tears, but still doesn't stop his assault. Now on their second wind, the party finally manages to give Roland the beatdown he's been asking for. He refuses to give up, clearly intent on fighting to the death, but Alex won't finish him off. Roland is given a second chance, whether he likes it or not. He's left in the care of his sole companion, Richie Cheese Dust, and the four men head to the shore. Derry announces that he's staying behind. Alex tries to argue that he should leave with them, much to Georgie's irritation. In the end, they set sail without him. Yes, Georgie's boat is a refrigerator. It's a long voyage, but eventually the three reach the opposite shore, a desert wasteland. Georgie bids the other two farewell and heads off to seek his fortune. Alex and Joel have a chat about the next move. Alex intends to continue his search for a better place, and Joel decides to come with him, if for no other reason than that's worked out so far. It looks like the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Heading inland, they pass a man dragging a raft toward the water. He seems to recognize Alex and isn't particularly happy to see him. Alex tries to apologize to him for some past wrong, but it's clearly too late for that. Clarence is heading for Garbage Island, essentially throwing himself away, and there's nothing Alex can do to change his mind now. He feels bad, but he just escaped that place. He's not about to let Clarence or anyone drag him back down. Further down the road, it's Derry. It looks like he found a way off the island after all. Inspired by Alex, Derry has decided to give up the garbage once and for all, even though at this point he doesn't know any other way to live. Tearful, he thanks Alex and the two men embrace. Derry then leaves to find his own path, standing up straight for the first time in decades. There's a little roadhouse in the wasteland, the last stop before downtown Olathe. A handful of men laze around in the shade, a few of them dead. This here is one of the funniest sight gags I've ever seen in a video game. The other corpse is a man who worked himself to death digging up a crate, but there's nothing inside except a bunch of cheap sports jerseys in garish red and green. Inside, the two men pass Georgie, who pretends not to see them as he emerges from a back room where a joy dealer has set up shop. I suppose we shouldn't be too surprised. Joy, primarily explored in Lisa the Painful, is a little blue pill that makes you feel nothing. It has the unfortunate side effect of turning people into joy mutants, but it's not really a major feature of this game, which is just one more way that Lisa the Pointless feels like it's in a world of its own. As they sit down in a rented room to rest, Joel tells Alex the story of his gun. It belonged to his father, a big game hunter who had adventures all over the world. Joel then admits that this was just one of the stupid stories his dad would tell, and that in reality, the man was only a petty criminal. Later, they're awakened by a scream from outside. They emerge to find the bar in shambles. The bartender's throat has been slit, and one of the patrons has turned into a mutant. We've been avoiding conflict so far, but this mutant's a menace. No good will come from leaving it be. Chaz is not a particularly difficult enemy. Debuff, get it bleeding, and make sure there's enough SP on hand for both Alex and Joel to dodge when they need to. If the mutant opens its mouth, on the next turn it will do an instant kill attack which will apply a permanent brain damage debuff to whoever it hits. Brain damage debuffs your SP and special stats. It's best to avoid it. With the mutant dispatched, the two can only head eastward. Word is that there's a city in that direction, but getting there requires crossing a vast stretch of burning desert that seems to go on forever. The merciless sun seems to swell up and fill the sky as the men march on. Just when Alex feels he can go on no longer, he finds a tunnel and enters, seeking shelter. Unfortunately, the baby fish man didn't make it. The desert was no place for the little guy. Rest in peace, baby fish man. After a short rest, Alex and Joel emerge on the other side of the tunnel, in downtown Olathe. It is immediately apparent that something terrible is happening here. The city looks like it's been torn down to its foundations, and a gigantic battle rages across a huge stretch of the rubble. Talking to a few locals, Alex discovers that there's a new gang in town, the Infinity franchise, and they have no respect for the game. They can be identified by their red and green jerseys marked with the number 88. These jersey heads have been on a non-stop rampage, and their numbers are swelling fast. Now, this number has some very unfortunate connotations in the real world, and given that the game is to some extent a meditation on how societies collapse, it may be a nod to the senselessness of nihilistic ideologies. However, if so, that's all that it is. As we will soon see, the franchise does not discriminate. It's not too long before Alex and Joel run afoul of the franchise. Two of their members try to jump the men, but Alex is able to defeat them thanks to his new move, Disarming Chop. This ability is essential for dealing with armed enemies from the base game like these two, but I found that a lot of the enemies added by the mod will immediately rearm themselves. Oh well, let's make it count while we can. Before the Jersey Heads showed up, downtown Olathe was controlled by 5 gangs who kept each other in check through a formalized conflict they called the game. It was violent, sure, but people usually walked away from fights. Now, the bodies are piling up, and it doesn't show any sign of slowing down. The jerseys are everywhere. People aren't just wearing them, they're flying them like flags, turning them into hats. There's no getting away from the things. One even hangs like a curtain over a cave entrance, and inside, kill, 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 kill. 8 is the first fold of infinity. What is this? The floor is littered with scraps of meat and bone, and there's a mark on the wall, almost like a crater. Alex can feel something beckoning from the other side. Back outside, the pair are attacked by another crazed man, Kerf Dinkle. It's possible that there's a way around him without fighting, but I couldn't think of one. Kerf is sort of a pushover, which is great because we're still way behind on levels. Joel spends most of the fight action rolling all over the place while Alex dishes out the damage. Kerf's last words sum up what's going on here. You killed no one. The franchise lives on. Inside the remains of a cafeteria-style eatery, Alex spots 2 Jersey Heads threatening a burly cook. He asks Alex and Joel for a hand, but the 2 men are reluctant to get into another fight. With a shrug, Lester simply unsheaths his katana and dispatches both would-be assailants in a single stroke. Guess he didn't need the help after all. There's a dried-up salt lake in the center of town, and descending into it, Alex and Joel find a man who appears to have salt crystals growing out of his flesh. He speaks a few cryptic words. They kept digging, but they didn't know why. Not far off, a billboard has its ad torn down, revealing what was beneath it. It looks like an ad for the jerseys we've been seeing, one that was made before the Flash. We learn later that there was once a high-end sportswear brand called King. What we can surmise then is that a company called Kung attempted to make bootleg basketball jerseys, but through some bizarre set of circumstances accidentally created an original product. Realizing these wouldn't sell, they dumped them and buried them, and that should have been the end of it. But now, decades later, they've been unearthed under the apparent cause of the ongoing frenzy. But while this may be interesting, it doesn't actually explain much about the present state of affairs. It's not even clear that the jerseys themselves have anything to do with it. Close inspection shows that they're nothing more than cheap knockoff sportswear, and there are even a few people around who've put them on to try to blend in, but still seem relatively normal. A banner hung across the street outside a few relatively intact buildings indicates that there's some sort of gathering of notable men. Beneath it, one of them walks along with slow, purposeful steps. He's approached by another Jersey Head, apparently a fan. It doesn't go too well. We should probably avoid that guy. Alex and Joel bump into a man wearing a business suit that's been converted into Wasteland wear. This is Office Ottoman, leader of one of the gangs that used to have this town on lock. After an awkward introduction, Alex and Joel grab a seat at the table and decide to hang around for whatever's about to happen. Whatever turns out to be a meeting of the Central Powers, the 5 gang leaders who run downtown Olathe, plus Chef, a man so deadly he counts as a gang all on his own, and Long Leg Lenny, a mysterious figure with even more mysterious connections. It turns out Lester is catering, so at least there'll be food. 2 of the invited leaders are missing, Jesse Mack and Sylvester de Mestre. Sylvester has apparently left the game behind, while the Mack clan have joined the Infinity franchise. Once you have the 88, it's already too late, says John Johnson, aka Three Finger Lover, aka Painzilla, aka Man-Made Miracle, aka Stealth Blitzkrieg, aka Backstab President, aka Modern Day Rhapsode, aka Bad Angel, aka Serbian Knife Fight, though he now goes by Gold Diamond. The members all agree that the franchise is pulling people out of the game, but it's more than that. They're leaving for other reasons, too. Some are going off to look for the girl thanks to the posters stuck up all over town, while others, like Alex, have begun listening to talk that there may be a bigger and better city somewhere else. Talk that appears to be originating from a strange television broadcast. The Central Powers appear stumped. Nobody knows how the game can be salvaged, so Alex simply suggests that the Powers leave too. Nobody really goes for it, leaving the group at an impasse. The scene grows still more surreal as Lenny says he needs to make a phone call. Office reminds him that there are no phones left downtown, that they've smashed them all, but the lights flicker and the man is gone. Chef has killed Zain Ka and is eating him. Fringe Boy is beating Gold Diamond to death with a stool. Alex sighs. It was almost a pleasant dinner. He and Joel discuss women for a bit, but Joel announces that there's no use thinking about what was. Alex suggests that maybe there is. Ever since the White Flash, something's been wrong with time in Olathe. Days sometimes last for weeks. Years can pass in the blink of an eye. Maybe, if you travel far enough, you can even find a way to turn back the clock. Office decides that he likes Alex and Joel and offers to leave with them. But the lights flicker again and he's dead, stabbed in the back by Chef, who is in turn choked on his meal. On the other end of the room, Fringe Boy lies dead, apparently killed by Tectonic and his self-detonation trick. It's time to leave. While there's much more to see and do downtown, it's clear that any further involvement in this Jersey business could spell disaster, especially now that what has amounted to the local government has been completely wiped out. The east end of downtown, dubbed Cherry Village, presents a welcome change of scenery. It's autumn here, and rolling fields of grain cover the landscape. This must be where the locals got their food before they all started slaughtering each other. With nobody left to work the fields, the grain is left to lodge. If winter ever comes to this place, it'll be a bad one. This is the territory of Jesse Mack and his brood, who despite having such obvious plenty have switched to a more carnivorous diet. The youngest of Jesse's sons explains that the family wasn't always like this. A while back, one of the boys went missing and Pa went out to look for him. He came back not with the missing child, but a Jersey, one of the first unearthed in the area, and nothing's ever been the same since. Alex and Joel do their best to avoid the Cannibal Max in a hostile car full of Jersey heads, making their way east through the hills past a wrecked truck spilling jerseys all over the red soil, and eventually to a high ridge. Stinking bodies are littered about the place, giving off noxious gases that make the skies above boil with red-green clouds. But for a moment, it almost looks like they may be getting away from the war zone. In truth, they've only entered the eye of the storm. A middle-aged man in a jersey stands atop the cliff, considering something in his hand. From here, it looks like a pink pill. Arnold Spitz is the reason it's so quiet up here. There's a zone of death around the man, and it's clear that Alex and Joel have blundered directly into it. Alex, seeing the writing on the wall, can only ask what is driving these people to such madness. Arnold cryptically answers that it was a corporate decision, and that the only thing to blame is the franchise itself. He slips on a set of brass knuckles and assumes a boxing stance. Having avoided violence wherever possible, and with it all of the accompanying EXP, we do not stand a chance. Even burning all our jerky and perfume, we're unable to keep up with the fact that Arnold hits like a truck. In short order, he mercilessly beats Alex into the dirt. With no other options, Joel and Alex leap off the cliff in a last-ditch effort to escape. Alex stands nervously outside the gymnasium, hands in his pockets. He can't stop pacing. Chie should have been here by now. He can't wait any longer. It's time. He reluctantly heads for the locker room, stopping briefly to talk to one of his idols, Choi Tai, who, like Alex, is here today to compete in the Universal Worldwide Full Contact Martial Arts Tournament. Her match is already wrapped, and she can't stay to watch, but she wishes Alex good luck. There's nothing left to do but suit up and head for the ring. Something's wrong. Alex can feel it right away in the pit of his stomach. His opponent takes up a relaxed Han Mi and waits for Alex to make a move. Alex moves in with an advancing stance. Nothing. He opens up with the now familiar flying axe kick, and in a heartbeat, his opponent catches him, using his own momentum to throw him to the mat. 0-1. That's okay. This time we'll surprise him with a goat kick. Again, the competitor simply catches Alex's attack and diverts him face first into the floor. 0-2. There's one more technique we can try, the minor iris, a rapid pressure point attack that can break any defense. The competitor simply catches Alex's arm and puts him on the floor. There's a reason we keep losing. Aikido is a very real martial art, developed over centuries by masters involved in very real conflicts. It is not the most glamorous school of fighting, but it's time-tested and part of a rich cultural tradition. Velvet Fu is not a real martial art. Alex learned it off of a videotape from a thrift store. It is a bastardized set of techniques developed by some huckster who wanted to make a buck off of American kids with low cultural literacy who only knew that ninjas are tight as hell. Alex may have been able to throw his weight around in his hometown, but here, facing a real professional fighter, he finds out that he's only ever been a big fish in a small pond. No wonder Chie never showed. There's no answer at Aunt Beth's place, so Alex hauls his sorry carcass to the bus stop, where he's greeted by a strange man. They share a few words about what happened. This tournament was Alex's one shot at the big leagues. He had pinned all of his hopes for the future on one match, something the stranger chides him for. Alex doesn't know it, but this is Dr. Yato, the man responsible for developing joy and unleashing it on Olathe. The bus trundles through the crappy little town, passing kids, dogs, ruined houses, heaps of rotting meat, and there, up ahead, something unspeakable begins to spread its wings. At the bottom of the cliff, Alex and Joel are surprised to discover that they're still alive, having had their fall broken by the branches of a tree and the remains of the last several people to take this route. Alex is fine, but Joel's in terrible shape. He's acquired the Broken Bones debuff, which permanently reduces his attack and defense greatly. Moving ahead, they find the pink pill that Arnold tossed off the cliff. There's no telling what it does, but this is the gosh damn apocalypse. You don't just see a pill on the ground and not grab it. Strange messages are scrawled inside of the cave. Something about a school and a tall machine. We did see a building dangling from a crane, but what's that got to do with anything? Another message is even stranger. They discovered gods no one ever worshipped. Eventually, Joel decides to rest and try to recover while Alex goes on. This is the world's last autumn, a forest decked in beautiful autumn foliage. There's a decrepit old house here, and Alex stops to have a look around. It contains a few on-the-nose literary references, Leviathan by Hobbes and The Decline of the West by Spengler. Leviathan famously argues that the life of man outside of society is nasty, solitary, brutish, and short, and that the natural state of mankind is a non-stop war of all against all in which nothing productive is possible. He goes on to say that strong top-down leadership is necessary to organize human chaos into a society, which is something like an organism, each person providing some necessary function for the well-being of the whole in the same way that individual cells make up a body. For Hobbes, this is the only way for people to be happy. Spengler is a much more controversial writer for reasons that YouTube would prefer that I not go into. But his general thesis in The Decline of the West is that civilizations naturally progress through a period of growth to a golden age which gives way to stagnation, decadence, and collapse. We also see a framed newspaper article beside a photograph labeled The Last Matador Commission. The newspaper talks about the threat of garbage insanity, deeming it a threat to America. The Last Matador was the working title of Lisa the Painful RPG prior to its release. It's an obvious reference, but the commission must mean more than that. Placing these four men beside a newspaper named The All-American suggests some sort of Cold War connection. We know that garbage insanity was a big worry before The Flash, and also that fears of it are largely unfounded. People on Garbage Island had some funny ideas, and they were being led astray by a cult, but for the most part they were fully capable of being rational. Alex is able to get the TV working, and we're treated to a bizarre spectacle. Images cut through the static. Two men, Roy Rube and Mortimer Goonhouse, are hosting a nonsensical TV show which appears to be a live broadcast. Despite having access to probably the only working TV studio this side of the sports dome, the men seem woefully unprepared to host a television segment. Their stuttering, jerky motions only add to the surreal dialogue. There's a special guest on the show today, Richard Weeks, a character from Lisa the Painful. He seems to be talking about Brad Armstrong, essentially comparing him to the inhabitants of Garbage Island. He's bleeding and tied to a chair, but still he goes on. Show somebody like that a glimmer of hope and they turn on you, he says. 'Cause there's no such thing as a friend in a world of violence. Who's this? Alex is suddenly accosted by a man wearing a pink mask and little else. He attempts to fight back, but the creep manages to get away. It's time to get moving. Further east, he comes across a shack. The body of his attacker lies outside, apparently having run afoul of the occupant. Within, he meets Cormac Rex and his dog Muffin. Cormac has lived out here on his own for God knows how long, and he'd prefer to keep it that way. Alex isn't the first person from downtown to come by this place, and Cormac is especially wary by now. But there's a trauma kit on the table. Alex asks him for it, begs even, but the man is resolute. He wants Alex to leave, and he's prepared to force him if need be. Joel, Alex's only friend in this world of violence, is still laid up back in that cave. There's no telling whether he'll survive without treatment. Alex has been trying to walk a peaceful path, but some things are worth fighting for. He tells Cormac that one way or another, he's leaving here with the trauma kit. Like many of the fights we've had, it's especially brutal thanks to our low level. The best thing to do is focus on Cormac, as he'll become very dangerous if Muffin goes down first. With the trauma kit in hand, Alex heads back to Joel, who's surprised but glad to see him. Before long, the pistolero's wounds are treated and the pair can resume their journey. Passing Cormac's shack, Joel suggests that they check inside for help. Alex explains that he's already been there, but isn't quite quick enough to stop Joel from stepping in. Joel emerges from the shack and wordlessly rejoins Alex, having seen what his life was bought with. Cormac is another literary reference, specifically to Cormac McCarthy, author of No Country for Old Men, The Road, and Blood Meridian. McCarthy wrote the final word on the postmodern cowboy story. Blood Meridian is a vicious deconstruction of the idea that the West was won by rugged men bringing civilization to the untamed West. Instead, it follows a group of killers rampaging across the countryside, first for bounties, then just for the hell of it, reveling in a Hobbesian war of all against all. But that's really only scratching the surface. Wendigoon did a brilliant video on the novel that I highly recommend, or you could perhaps go find and read it. It's not hard to see McCarthy's influence, not just on this game, but on the post-apocalyptic genre as a whole. The Wasteland fantasy is essentially a return to those days, a nihilistic urge to see what would happen if some unbelievable catastrophe wiped the slate clean and peeled back all of the illusions that polite society is built on. But it's more than just that, I think. Post-apocalyptic stories are often redemptive. Even if there's no fixing the world, they often hold moments of heroism, triumph, and community. The hope that no matter how bad it gets, humanity will occasionally prove Hobbes wrong and build something positive in the absence of order. Alex and Joel follow a valley east to a cave containing what looks like the ruins of a cement factory. Here, several men have set up camp. Speaking to one Jason Pike, they discover that this group is also bound for the city. Looks like we're finally on the right track. Jason was a midwife, but there's no call for delivering babies in the apocalypse, so he's headed to the city for work. He was supposed to meet with someone along the way, but that man hasn't showed, so here he waits. Alex awakens as a blood-soaked man steps over him, headed for Jason. The campfires have burned down to embers, but it's obvious that this stranger has been busy. Other than Joel and the midwife, everybody's dead. Guided by reflex, Alex leaps to his feet, but Hugo is faster, knocking Alex out cold with a single punch. He comes to only moments later. The stranger, a man named Hugo Leopardi, seems to know Pike, and it doesn't sound like a friendly relationship. He offers Pike an ultimatum: comply with some sort of request, or watch Alex and Joel die. A dialogue menu pops up, but we have no control. Whatever happens is in Pike's gloved hands. It's one of those grim choices that made Lisa the Pointless so memorable. Only this time, we're not the ones making it. We're helpless to watch as Pike considers the options. He refuses, and Hugo draws his blade. Alex tries to fight back, but there's no time to gather his senses. Hugo drives a scalpel into him over and over until he goes limp. Joel suddenly rises, drawing his gun and leveling it at the stranger, who simply says, "You will not harm me," before Joel pulls the trigger, discovering that he forgot to load. How did he know? With that, he leaves, and Pike rushes to staunch Alex's bleeding. He discovers the pink pill as he works, and quietly pockets it. It looks like Alex will survive, but he can barely walk, and his fighting days, such as they were, may be over. His stats are permanently tanked. Joel helps him along as Pike leads the two into the tunnels. They emerge on a gloomy lake shore. A short distance away, Pike is negotiating passage with a few members of the Neon Flamingos, who have agreed to give him a ride in exchange for the pill. Unfortunately, the deal doesn't extend to our heroes, who are about to be left in the dust until a man in a mannequin mask speaks up. "We've got enough enemies," he says. "Hop on." The bus rolls on through the desert until finally their destination comes into view, illuminating the horizon in brilliant fuchsia. The city, at last. And that, dear viewers, is how I first experienced Lisa the Pointless. Alex left Garbage Island with a singular goal: head east and find the city. What I got was a short but interesting story that promised many things ahead. This feels like it was the intended route to me. Alex, as written, is a man who used to be a bully but has been softened by age and the wisdom that comes with it. He is humble and kind, but not afraid to stand up for his friends, even if that means going too far. But like Alex, I barely scratched the surface. I've repeatedly said that this is mechanically the deepest Lisa game, but I've spent the entire run avoiding fights. In avoiding fights, I missed many story elements, and I never really got to see the big picture. This is a short game, but what it lacks in length, it more than makes up for in depth. So let's go back to Garbage Island, and this time let's get serious. There are answers in downtown Olathe for those determined enough to seek them out. Instead of pursuing the path of peace, Alex chooses to defend himself a little bit more proactively. He still helps the rando army, he still recruits Derry, but when confronted, he kills Bob Versace and the two joy dealers down in the old town. Instead of sparing Gunther's scourge, he puts him out of his misery. He doesn't avoid the rag maggots, he stomps them into submission. Alex isn't cold-blooded, but these people all struck first. They knew what they were getting into. By proactively seeking out all the fights we can, and with the help of the rando patch, we managed to reach level 6 without even leaving the island. For comparison, we were downtown before we hit that benchmark in our previous run. At the bottom of a cliff, Alex encounters Sean, who has become a crazed cannibal after he and his scouting party were stranded. He attacks Alex, who kills him and returns his body to his grandfather at the rando camp. The elder Sean hands Alex the key to one of the army's old storehouses as a reward. The place has been largely cleaned out, but a secret passage in the back holds a few hidden supplies. May as well take what we can. The The theft does not go unnoticed. Alex, Joel, Georgie, and Derry find the 3 wise men beaten to a pulp. 2 are already dead, but the 3rd surviving mystic warns Alex that a large man in a rando uniform is on a rampage. It's not long before he finds us, hurling insults at the group for being a bunch of low-life trash men. Big talk. Let's see if he can back it up. Will's turns generally consist of doing a single target high damage attack, knocking somebody down and making them miss a turn, or singling somebody out, a move that cuts their SP and likely sets them up for a one-hit KO. As long as he's armed, he can do a full party attack, so it's a good idea for Alex to hit him with a disarming chop whenever possible. Backed into a corner, Will pops a joy and prepares to use a technique he learned from Rando himself. Rando's stab does upwards of 500 damage, usually enough to KO any character. It's best to guard or dodge, but at this point the fight's nearly over, and it may be better to just throw whatever we've got at him. Will groans an apology to Floyd and gives up the ghost. Searching him, Alex discovers a little blue pill. Joy. So what was this guy's problem anyway? Will's unsettling appearance may just be due to being burned in some horrible accident, but he also closely resembles an enemy from Lisa, the Painful, known as a creep. These were failed super soldier experiments from the Joy Project, a bit like the Fishmen or the Joy Mutants. While they share the same bloodthirsty behavior of the latter, they hold on to just a bit more of their memories and self-control. If he's a burn victim, then he may have become addicted to joy from trying to deal with the pain. If he's meant to look like a creep or some other kind of proto-mutant, then he may have just had his first taste of joy before the formula was finalized, back when this was what it did to people. Or maybe he just looks like that for no reason. Either way, through an enormous effort of will, he was able to put his addiction and whatever physical and mental anguish he had experienced behind him in order to march with the Rando Army. He may not have been a very nice person, but he learned to master himself in a way that you've got to respect. Rando, who we know is mostly an honorable man despite appearances, must have shared this opinion if he thought Will was worthy of learning one of his ultimate techniques. Unfortunately, being stranded on Garbage Island, abandoned by his mentor, and surrounded by people who were a constant reminder of what he used to be really got to him. When a trio of joy dealers showed up, the temptation was too much to bear, and our man fell off the wagon. His final words were an apology to Floyd, not for failing to get back whatever meager supplies Alex took, but for letting the misery of Garbage Island drag him down. Nobody deserves this place. Georgie tells Alex that the pills are dangerous, but he knows a way to get rid of them. Alex shrugs and hands it to him. Sure, Georgie. We trust you.
This rhino pill creamy. I'm busting off the pill.
Something has changed. Ominous clouds, even more ominous than the usual garbage stink clouds, have rolled in, and it's begun to rain. The Rando camp is a slaughterhouse. Everyone is dead, many of them in pretty spectacular fashion. At first, it's easy to assume that this is just Will's doing, but Floyd is missing from his cave, and the crate of jerseys is empty. Down in the Fishman village, there's a boombox playing a bizarre song on a loop. Realizing it's something that Ben and Percy might like, Alex strolls up and grabs it, apparently causing great offense. The fishmen seem to insist that he returns it, and when he doesn't, the Fishman elder emerges from his tent. This fight is rough thanks to the fact that these enemies work together. Parasol Fishman heals his friends and spits water on characters, making them vulnerable to the Elder's devastating electrical attacks. The best way to go seems to be to take out the Demon Eye Fishman. He only deals moderate damage, but his lower HP total makes him a softer target, and once he's out of the picture, things become much more manageable. Once the Elder goes down, the Parasol Fishman is basically defenseless. We hit level 7, and the tape is ours. Inside the Elder's tent, the group finds evidence that he was butchering his fellow fishmen. Given that the others seem horrified by what Alex has done, we can only surmise that this is a permitted practice in their culture. Ah well, it's the apocalypse. Do what you gotta do, fishmen. Don't worry, baby Fishman is still with us. He's probably too young to understand what happened. Bringing the tape to Ben and Percy, Alex is offered either a martial arts scroll or a roll of toilet paper with some kind of technique written on it. The toilet paper will teach Joel to use cowboy stance, boosting his speed and the damage he deals throwing bottles. The scroll, on the other hand, unlocks steadfast stance for Alex, which heals him every turn as long as he doesn't use any other stance. Steadfast is the clear winner here. It shores up Alex's biggest weakness and provides unlimited healing, while cowboy stance is a relatively minor buff for Joel. Out on the shore, past all the now defeated rag maggots, a hidden cave leads to a soggy pit filled with trash. Maggots, that is, fly larvae, squirm in great piles amid the refuse. Disgusted, Alex stomps them all out. Or so he thought. A tangle of corpses, wrapped in garbage and animated by the worms squirming within, emerges from the heap. A dead man's mouth opens, and the vermin spill forth to attack. Meet the mother maggot. Of the area's 4 hidden bosses, it may be the easiest, but it's no pushover. The insects can animate the bodies to deliver a paralytic bite, and periodically, the boss will summon swarms that ignore taunts and will quickly pile on damage if not cleared out. This is a great place to break out steadfast stance. Alex can use it to keep his HP up while he clears out the swarms with basic attacks. Joel tosses a couple of bottles, and that's all she wrote. Me too, Alex. Me too. There's nothing left for us here. Because we've tracked down and defeated these secret bosses, our extended stay on the island has given Roland more time to prepare, and this time he's not alone. Richie Cheese Dust, his only friend, and possibly even more than that, is by his side. Other than being tougher and hitting a lot harder, Super Roland isn't too different from the first time around. As with the Fishman Elder, it's a good idea to take out Richie first. This time, Augustus won't come to our rescue. Alex still made a good impression helping the old man, but this time he didn't even try to get Bob Versace to come around. Ah well, Super Roland would have just killed him anyway. With Roland and Richie now on their way to Valhalla, Alex and Joel sail to the other shore with Georgie. They make their way to the bar, same as ever, but this time they stop to talk to a man in the corner. This is Jean. Resting up, Alex tells Joel a story about Clarence, the man they passed on the road. He and Alex were friends once, but it all fell apart over a girl. Clarence tried to warn Alex that Chie was just using him, but Alex wasn't trying to hear all that. Things never really got better between the two. As before, they awaken to find the bartender dead and a patron mutated. Outside, Jean is painting a warning on the side of the building. After a brief chat, he decides to join the group. Jean is awesome. It isn't quite clear whether he's a knife-wielding psychopath or a normal artist who happens to use a knife as a weapon, but that hardly matters. By trading a rando coin to one of the soldiers on the island, we acquired a combat knife. This has slightly lower attack power than Jean's starting blade, but it causes him to gain TP whenever he attacks. Have we talked about TP? SP works like magic points in most other RPGs. TP, on the other hand, charge up as you take certain actions. Anything that improves TP gain for TP characters will increase their uptime dramatically. Jean's role in combat is mostly about damage. From the get-go, he synergizes quite well with Alex, as the latter can apply bleed to enemies, unlocking a more powerful version of one of Jean's best attacks. The endless wasteland between the roadhouse and downtown awaits, but there's no rush. Let's take a little detour. There's a cave off to one side, the kind of thing you'd expect to find a few magazines or maybe a battle in. But this one just keeps going. The walls in the upper reaches are painted with esoteric graffiti, most notably a question. If. If what? A robed man named Diocletians tells Alex that he has reached the land with no sun. This is the ancestral homeland of the Marauders, a group of mystics who claim that their history extends to before the White Flash. The Marauders are pretty cool guys. They sell some decent healing items and a big antique vase, which will surely come in handy very shortly. True to its name, the land with no sun swelters under a black sky, a testament to the broken flow of time in Olathe. Here, more than ever before, it's evident that something may be happening on a broader scale than the series has really imagined before. But what? We find that we've arrived just as the Marauders are mobilizing. An outsider recently stole their greatest treasure, a pink pill, and absconded with it. A few men head out on the chase as Alex approaches the throne of the elder Sios Morozin. Alex seeks the elder's wisdom. He's been searching for a better place ever since the world went to hell. When will he find it? The elder can only tell him that life rewards those who are patient. Before we go, we stop by this pool. It offers a free, repeatable full heal for the entire party. Additionally, we can fill our vase here and get one for the road. But the baby fish man sees it and starts squirming. Alex nods and the little guy hops into the jug. Now he'll be safe crossing the desert. Traveling through another branch of the cave, Alex encounters a shadowy figure, much like the ones Rodriguez's gang tangled with in Pointless. They're not too difficult to deal with, but at one point one of them grabs Joel, leading to a battle where Alex has to be careful not to axe kick his buddy. In one dark corner, Alex discovers the lair of the Mask Maker. This is a reference to a mysterious character that's been driving Hollow Knight theorists insane for years, but he's also a vendor, selling a few masks that dramatically change your stats around. These are probably crucial to high-level play, but I'm happy with things as they are now. Eventually, the tunnel opens up to reveal a twilit desert, infested with scorpions. There are several RVs set up along the crest of this hill. Each is loaded with meteorological equipment. Skeletons litter the area, researchers who once worked here. They've left behind notes detailing their observations on December 31st, 1999. Strange lights were spotted in the sky as a storm blew in from the northeast. It picked up in intensity, cutting off all contact with headquarters and eventually causing the entire sky to change color. Whatever happened, it was unprecedented, unexpected, and led to the deaths of everyone here. Given the timing, we may be looking at records from the people who actually observed the white flash. Uh-oh. That's a lot of scorpions. Uh-oh. This is a great time to break out the Marauders' herbs as they heal and help with poison. Damn, this is a good track. With that out of the way, we can head for the summit. Twice in a row? The Condor is a simple enemy made slightly more complex by the flight mechanic. As long as it's in the air, it can only be hit by long-ranged attacks. These include flying axe kick, possibly goat kick, bottle throwing, and Jean's poison dart, among others. It winds up burning some resources, but that's fine. We'll trade bottles for experience any day. There are some pages from a manual up here describing the art of trickery. Reading it, Joel learns how to play dead. Nice. I don't think I ever used this once in any playthrough. Back at the base of the hill, there's a ledge. The drop does 500 damage, but leads to a cave wherein can be found the ancient ring. Back at the Marauder village, there's a cliff which is said to reject all but the worthy, the Cliff of Perpetuity. Alex has found the ring and defeated the mountain's guardians. If that doesn't count, what does? He takes a flying leap off the cliff and, instead of falling to his doom, he is bathed in golden light and flung back over the ledge. The cliff has accepted him, and in doing, cleansed the rust from the ancient ring, revealing the perpetual ring. This is one of Alex's best weapons, and we're gonna need it. We say goodbye to the Marauder village and make the trek eastward, toward downtown. The mod thankfully adds a skip for the very long walk. We still take damage, but we don't have to sit through the whole thing again, and because we got a vase for our boy, the baby fish man survives this time. Skipping the campfire gets us a new encounter. We're in our self-defense arc. Jersey heads beware. We pass the Marauder party and pop into a garage where we accidentally piss off a couple of the locals. Whoops. Fighting our way past a handful of Jersey heads, we pop in to help Lester out. He feeds us meat during the battle to keep our strength up. There are 3 wanted posters in the cafeteria. Lester wants the heads of local moochers Jesse Mack, Anaconda Virtue, and Stephen Kindchild. He also wants their bodies. Just, to make sure they're really dead. Lester's restaurant is an extremely important location if you're spending any amount of time in downtown Olathe. He sells a limited supply of healing items, and the Nightmare Vial especially is a godsend for reviving downed party members, even if it does inflict fear. While we still have no intention of succumbing to whatever madness has overtaken this place, we the players know what's coming, even if Alex doesn't. We've been a loser our entire life. This time, we're not going to lose to Arnold, and that means we'll have to use our time in downtown Olathe to get stronger. Despite having his boys with him, Jesse Mack is the easiest of the 3 bounties to take down. Much like Roland or the Joy Mutant in the Roadhouse, Mack can power up an attack that is often a one-hit KO, requiring us to spend valuable time dodging instead of doing damage. He can also drain the life from our party, which means it's difficult to take him down without some breathing room. It's better to kill Senor Keister as fast as possible. If you have the Minor Iris, you can use that to break through his guard. Otherwise, just chip at he and Alejandro Babbage until Daddy Mac is all alone. Turning in Mac's body grants us 16 packets of dried up tomato sauce, perfect for healing in between fights. The second bounty, Anaconda Virtue, threatens us as we travel the underground. He will then travel around downtown. We can fight him, but it looks like it's going to take a few attempts. When he gets too badly injured, he escapes to a new location. Each subsequent fight is more difficult. In the end, he becomes a pyromaniac with a debilitating screech attack. Baby Fishman can come in handy here, as his splash ability will remove the burning condition. Anaconda is a difficult fight in this mod pack. I found him to be the most difficult of the 3 bounties, but it's probably smartest to come back later when we've racked up some more kills. Either way, as a reward, Lester dishes out a bag of stew and a bottle of potato liquor. Speaking of kills, remember that weird cave? Now that we've killed at least 8 people downtown, let's give that another look. Alex passes through what was once a solid wall, finding himself in an endless ocean of blood that pours from a hole in a beating heart. But he's not alone here. A Jersey head passes him on his way to the exit. An unassuming man in a red and green sweater vest sits at a desk, filling out paperwork. Seeing Alex, he welcomes him to the franchise, explaining that by completing the first assignment, 8 senseless, unnecessary kills, Alex has entered the first fold of infinity. The next step, he explains, is to rack up 16 additional kills. But before we can get back to it, Daniel Grind conjures Alex's inner child from the ether and instructs him to kill it. When Alex refuses, Daniel instead conjures the avatar of Alex's hatred, a trash dweller who for some reason talks like a beatnik. It's up to us whether we kill the avatar or not, and it makes no difference to the story. Killing it will raise Alex's offense and lower his defense. We have Joel for tanking, so that seems like a good deal to me. Leaving back the way he came, Alex reawakens in the cave. Maybe that was all a dream and we were simply overcome by the meat fumes. There was a school here. It's gone now, ripped off of its foundation and left hanging from a gigantic crane. Down below, we find a strange man who simply stares blankly toward a locked door. A group of gang members stand around a rack of televisions that appear to be receiving broadcasts from the city. Looks like Rube and Goonhouse are quite popular here. At least, until the broadcast cut out, replaced with red and green instructions to kill. A strange man flees the scene. Hey, that's Stefan Kindchild. Stefan is some kind of tech wizard. He's rigged up radio transmitters all over town. If we find them, we can smash them, which will make things easier when we finally confront him in the alley near the gambling hall. Stefan is riding Chandler Sinclair, and in turn has a television strapped to his head. Sinclair ought to be taken out first, then Stefan. The TV has a few different effects, but it's best to just ignore it, as Stefan can do pretty good damage and it'll die when he does. Turning in his body gets us 2 bags of Moe's Special and unlocks the item for purchase. It heals HP and SP, but applies the oiled up status, making the user vulnerable to fire. That's all 3 bounties completed. Way off to the side, through what used to be territory housing the headquarters of the various gangs, Chris Bellucci has set up shop in a wrestling ring and attracted something of an audience. It's time to step into the squared circle. Chris, it turns out, actually used to be a professional wrestler. He began raising awareness for garbage insanity after his wife was afflicted by the disease, but that's all in the past now. He has joined the franchise, and there is nowhere to go but infinity. Alex tries to intimidate him, mentioning that we've bumped off a few Jersey heads already, but he only discovers that these people have no concern for each other. Killing is the only thing left for them. His sprite will change as he sets up different attacks. It's a neat touch, but not nearly enough. With Joel taunting and Alex and Jean piling on the damage, it's all over in a flash. There are several other franchise members to take out around the place. We stop by Office Ottoman's headquarters. We fight this ridiculously strong baseball guy. We head back toward where we first arrived to clean up a few more. Bit by bit, the game's players all die, put on the jersey, or both. In return, they're replaced by eerie green and red shadows. These are a representation of the masses who are flocking here to take part in the slaughter. For every man we kill, more appear. Our friends are not exempt. Eventually, the Marauders and the Gravedigger grow tired of merely watching the slaughter and become a part of it. Downtown Olathe is built around a mountain. As we climb it, we enter Sweet Breeze Park, a nature preserve which has predictably become infested by the Infinity franchise. Off to one side, we can find a group of children hiding from all the carnage in a playground. Though they initially attack us, Joel is able to free himself from the trap they set and restore order by brandishing his gun. They don't exactly become friendly, but we're able to learn that despite being children, they just might have the survival skills to make it out here. This little dude, Wily Knight, is hiding out in a cave nearby. Seeing us, he shares a bit of jerky, which turns out to be poisonous. I hate it here. On our way back, we're jumped by somebody familiar, the guy from under the school. This is Wilbur, and despite his ominous appearance, he's a pushover. After a few rounds, he retreats, leaving us with a key. What was that all about? Now that we've taken out Kindchild, we decide to take a crack at fixing the broadcast, despite having no idea what we're doing. Whoops. This near-death experience unlocks a new technique for Alex, allowing us to shock enemies for really solid damage if they have the wet status effect. We make our way east across Cherry Village. Remember when this car tried to run us over last time? Yeah, screw these guys. We're not running away this time. We're not surprised when a Jersey head steps out of the Infinimobile, nor when a second or even a third appears. But as the fight wears on, they just keep coming. It's a clown car. There's no perfect way to handle this. Since we've got Jean, our damage output is high enough that simply focusing down individual enemies as fast as possible makes about as much sense as anything else. The one exception is Geronimo Phantasmata. The last to emerge, he constantly whips high damage fireballs at the party, making him priority number 1. You need to go after this clown like your Space Station 13 security.
Put the boots to him, medium style.
With the clown crew wiped, we're at 24 kills. We are finally ready to go see Daniel. Alex puts a few questions to the man. Daniel tells him that the franchise is no game, but declines to explain what the point of it all is. Instead, he congratulates Alex on reaching the second fold and summons another phantom. This time, it's Alex's teacher, the man from the videotape. The fight isn't difficult, and afterwards, we're awarded with another stat boost and we unlock a new ability, the Major Iris. It's time. Arnold is looking a little rough when we find him. He's been out here for hours, fighting as much as we have, but he's on his own, and instead of building him up, it's been wearing him down. He's still no laughing matter. His boxing technique is solid, and he's able to lay down a lot of damage very quickly. The appropriate response is to hit him as hard and fast as possible. Weakened, he will become more defensive, creating enough breathing room for setups and heals. Something strange happens during the fight. Arnold begins to move so fast that we can hardly make out his form anymore. He's not mutating, he's simply blurred out into 2 or 3 copies of himself, a bit like the Last Rider's after images. But here, something's off. Punch-drunk and overawed, Alex, Joel, and Jean all 3 catch a glimpse of something impossible, a toxic green light that seems to emanate from within the man. In an instant, it's over. This is a human being, not a god. It's not even anyone important. Arnold Spitz is no one in particular. He falls to the ground, dead, but there's no time to celebrate. Dozens of Jersey heads drawn by the fight have come to finish us off. The 3 men weigh the odds, then choose to take their chances with the cliff. As before, Alex recalls his fight with Stan Curian. As before, he remembers losing. Is this any different? Joel is wounded. Alex has made it down in one piece, but Jean and the baby fishman are dead. All that killing, and what did it amount to? What did it do besides drag us down, leaving us no better off than our last run? Alex puts down the creepy guy in the house because he had it coming, but can't bring himself to kill Cormac over the trauma kit. He heads east, hoping to get some help further down the road. He meets Jason and the other men headed for the city. Maybe in the morning he can talk them into coming back and helping Joel out, but for now he's exhausted. Hugo comes in the night, wiping out most of the camp. This time, Alex knows better than to jump up right away. He feigns sleep, waiting for the right moment. Here we go. Alex really puts the hurt on Hugo, but hesitates when the big man draws a scalpel. Hey, it's Joel. He caught up to us. Hugo takes Alex down and, as before, drives the scalpel into him. He raises it again. Joel pulls the trigger, blowing a fist-sized hole through Hugo and killing him instantly. Well then. Pike sets about fixing Alex up. Thanks to Joel's timely intervention, he isn't hurt all that badly, and he's able to walk under his own power as the three men head through the factory toward the lake shore. From here, the ending is no different. Pike pays his way with our pink pill, the flamingos relent and let us on too, and we head for the city, full of uncertain promise. Alex is in one piece, but Joel is not, and Chekhov's gun has been fired. So here we are, 2 folds deep. What have we learned? The franchise appears to be a multi-level marketing scheme where instead of selling products, you kill people. But why? There's clearly something supernatural behind it. Daniel Grind in the Blood Ocean could have been Alex's hallucinations, but everybody saw something otherworldly during the fight with Arnold, a man much farther down the path of infinity than anyone else we faced. But what did he find there? Scholar of the Wilburson's greatest contribution is the expanded downtown. We've only scratched the surface. If we again turn back the clock, this time to when we first arrived downtown, and chase down every fight we possibly can, the nature of the game begins to change. Instead of exploring new areas and muddling our way through, we become the hunter, constantly retracing our steps in search of new enemies to fight. With almost everyone we kill, a new enemy will appear somewhere downtown. Often there are a few choices, but usually most of them will be prohibitively difficult without more levels or better supplies. We find a crusty old bathrobe in the salt lake and return it to this horrible little man. He is Salt Crab, a hermit who subsists entirely on salt, to the extent that salt crystals are growing from his body. He offers to join us, which proves a bridge too far for Jean. We say our goodbyes to the artist, and Salt Crab joins the party. Salt Crab is a tank, while Jean is all about damage. They're about equal in terms of effectiveness, but personally I much prefer Jean. The best defense is a dead enemy, and Joel is already a dedicated tank. There's a salt mine at the base of the lake. Passing through it, we find a community of people just like Salt Crab, who, like the garbage men and the Jersey heads, have turned something inane into a spiritual activity. This has rendered some of them practically immobile as their bodies fall apart and are replaced by salt crystals, and at least for now it's prevented the franchise from taking root here. At least one salt man does have an interest, however. Doramir is a collector of esoteric items and will happily buy as many of the jerseys as you can bring him. He also trades for unusual items, similar to Ben and Percy. Once again, we spot a reference to Leviathan, this time in a prominently displayed Leviathan cross, a symbol representing balance and protection. Interestingly, it incorporates the sign of infinity into its design, and just for the Fear and Hunger and Lily's Well fans, the Leviathan cross can also represent sulfur in alchemy. Revisiting Sweet Breeze Park, we find that things are starting to go amiss with the children. One of them has found a jersey, and it's already having an effect. There's nothing we can do here. Yeah, more Jersey heads. Oh, come on, dude. We meet a strange man who invites us in for tea. His name is Nabrowski, and he maintains a yoga studio up here. He and Alex have a long discussion about the necessity of violence. Certainly nobody in this world is above it, but it's difficult to keep your intentions pure the longer you stay mired in it. Perhaps predictably, we're not allowed to leave. Schnebrowski knows what path Alex is on and aims to put him down for his own good. We are forced to kill him and all of his students. There are cabins on one side of the mountain, populated by townspeople who've taken refuge up here. They warn us not to ring a bell on the west side of the bridge, where the campground has been overrun by Jersey heads. Crossing that bridge, we find the franchise here has formed some sort of blood cult. Most of them are too busy to fight, but at the far end of the place, inside a meeting hall, we do find that bell. Ringing it causes some of the more sane folks to scatter. The others gather in reverent awe of what is about to happen. We cross back over the bridge where a gigantic Jersey head appears to be hunting for someone named Ernesto, who pops out and urges us to hide. It turns out we weren't hiding from the Jersey head, but from a former camp counselor, Jeremy Denkins. Now an old man, in response to the goings-on here, he has become an absolute terror. With Denkins gone and Jersey head dead, it's safe to come back out. Nah, screw that, let's follow him. We find the old man outside his lonely cabin, and a battle ensues. If we get here early, this is a two-phase battle. If you're past the second fold, he'll reveal himself to be a member of the franchise at the beginning of the fight. Salt Crab can dispel fear. After that, it's vital we hit Denkins with every debuff in our arsenal. From there, it's a damage race. His shotgun will wipe us out if it hits, so our objective is to prevent that from happening by any means necessary. Joel's misdirection will throw off his aim in the first phase. Other than that, we simply have to take him down before he can blow us away. We have one more stop here on the mountain, the Sweet Breeze Hotel. We're on our way to see an old friend. Somebody has crashed a helicopter into the outside of this building. Fighting our way past the Jersey heads in the lobby, we discover who. Floyd Burnside stands atop the hotel. He's donned a jersey as a mask, and in one hand he wields a helicopter blade for a sword. It seems he reacted poorly to Will's death, but he's beyond caring about that now. He's killed over 100 men, putting him quite far down the path of infinity. The fight is a blowout, one of the best in the mod. In addition to a deadly arsenal of regular attacks, including a sword chop that will permanently inflict bone break, he also knows Rando Stab, and it's just as dangerous as before. We throw everything we have into taking him down, but this isn't just Scholar of the Wilbur Sin, this is Infinity Unfolds. Instead of dying, he enters a second phase, and then a third. In the end, his discarded sword falls back down, cleaving his head from his shoulders. Speaking of Wilbur Sin, remember that key? We enter the school and find something truly bizarre. Pipes and grinders transport huge amounts of meat through an incredible abattoir, and the air is choked with green fumes. We pass a latex-clad man wallowing in the stuff, then enter the bowels of the machine, where we find Wilbur Sin tending some infernal apparatus. Wilbur never wanted things to end up like this. Everything that's happened downtown is his fault, he says. What could he mean? And then the battle begins. Similar to Arnold, Wilbur's blinding speed and maybe the aforementioned meat fumes turn the battle into a hallucinatory nightmare. But as powerful as we are now, he can't stand up to Velvet Foo in a barrage of bottles. He collapses, dies, and the machine, whatever it was, stops moving. We have not saved downtown, nor have we stopped the spread of the franchise. But maybe we've accomplished something. It's difficult to say. That done, we decide to leave for good. But it's never so easy. Alex collapses near a crashed truck full of old jerseys and... Alex Churchland is a suburban schoolboy living at the edge of poverty. For whatever reason, his mother's out of the picture, so he's raised by a collective of older family members who don't seem to have children of their own. One sunny day in the 70s, his Aunt Beth stops by to give him a present. A repeating red and green Message to Kill on VHS. He's puzzled. He tries to back out, but it's too late. Beth is gone. Alex is an old man who wasted his life failing at everything he ever attempted.
Presentation.
The fight against the Avatar of Decay is particularly difficult, but don't worry, you don't need to win. It's inevitable now. There's nowhere to go but infinity. Arnold is on his last legs, but if we hoped that would make this easier, we are sorely mistaken. The franchise has converged here, and they're all out for blood. This is a winnable fight, but we don't have it in us. Despite everything, Alex succumbs to his injuries. And then, he gets back up. He grabs Joel and Salt Crab, heaves them over the edge of the cliff, and takes the leap himself. Oh. Hey, Daniel. We awaken. Joel is dead. A failure. Salt Crab doesn't even get a mention. The baby fish man is also dead. It's not clear if Alex threw them off the cliff in an attempt to save them from the mob, or it was an attempt to kill them. At some point, he donned a jersey. It doesn't matter. How could it ever have mattered? Alex has attained the third fold of infinity and irrevocably lost what made him Alex. All he cares for is killing. Anyone who crosses his path is surely doomed. The franchise has obliterated his past. Defeating Arnold would have made little difference. It would not have changed the outcome. This road only ever had one destination. Having sacrificed everything, Alex has passed through the veil, only to discover that there was never anything on the other side. Infinity and nothingness are the same. They have no end, no bottom. All that awaits is death. There are more of the living shadows around here. A nearby note suggests that these are all that remain of the women taken by the White Flash. There's a detour here, available on any route. It leads to a village of mud where we can find a strange man sitting by a telephone, perhaps an associate of Longleg Lenny's. And there's also downtown's missing gang leader, Sylvester de Mestre. Both are very difficult optional boss battles. Arriving at the cement factory, Alex launches himself at Pike and the huddled refugees, who take a desperate stand against him. It's no use. Entering the third fold has changed Alex. He uses TP instead of SP now, making him far more aggressive. He can heal himself by biting his enemies, devouring them alive. Hugo arrives and is displeased with what Alex has done. This is another forced loss. Even if we defeat Hugo, he will always rally in the last moment and stab Alex, leaving him for dead after saying his goodbyes to Jason. But as usual, Alex doesn't die that easily. He climbs back to his feet and stalks through the tunnels, bleeding like a stuck pig all the way. He emerges along the lake shore, limps along the pathway, and sits down at the stop to wait for a bus that will never come. Life is hard. Often, it's a miserable slog. Wake up, go to work, come home, and hope you're not too tired to play a video game or watch a few episodes before you have to pass out and do it all over again. Life is pointless. If you believe in heaven or nirvana or whatever else, this existence is ultimately unimportant. If you don't, then you know that in less than 100 years you'll be gone. If we are lucky, we are each allotted an utterly meaningless century. Despite this, we cling to life because existentially, it's the only thing we're really certain of. Faced with the knowledge that everything we will ever experience may ultimately amount to nothing, we grow anxious. In our angst, we look for meaning, and in doing, we turn our backs on the real world to chase the phantoms and fantasies we conjure for ourselves. So what is to be done in a world drowning in the terror of meaningless evanescence? Well, never fear. There are a lot of people bracing themselves against that very same terror, and boy, have they got an ethos for you. One that frames you as the lone warrior, the last sane man, the last matador, tearing down everything in a world gone mad. One that will teach you that violence is necessary to bring out some improbable new dawn. One that replaces the uncomfortable mediocrity of the real world with a fantasy that will exploit your helplessness until you're either so angry you can't see straight or you just give up and stop caring. From there, there's nowhere to go but infinity. And infinity has no bottom. The world can be better, but there will never be a better world than this, and we've only got so much time to spend in it. There is garbage in the world, but the world is not garbage. Regardless of what the nihilists say, all the meaning you could ever need is within arm's reach as long as you are willing to create it. We'll never know if utopia is possible, but was or could be are no reason to give up on yourself and the people around you, on what is. Be kind, despite everything. Lift others up and hold yourself up in turn. The world is only pointless if you turn your back on it. And that, dear viewer, is Scholar of the Wilbur Sin. A face-first dive into the heart of darkness in downtown Olathe. There is more to discover, of course. I was astonished at how much content was jammed into every nook and cranny. I've left several fights out, including the game's biggest super boss. To face him, you'll need to beat the powered-up Roland and a mob of Jersey heads accompanying Arnold on the threefold route. Both men will drop a valve, and with both valves you'll be able to access a secret area. Good luck with that if you try it. I'd like to thank you all for sticking with me this far, especially those of you who endured a couple of months of waiting for me to get this video out. It was a massive project and came at a very difficult time in my life. I'd also like to give a special thanks to my patrons. If you'd like to join our community Discord, get your name in the patron credits, or you just want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/worm_girl. Let's give a shout out to B. Jensen, Retro Peritoneal Hammerhead, Corey Vindelspelt, Lugray, Big Anime Titty Connoisseur, Arthur G, Zeeks, Greg Records, Anani Mouse, Too Many Cats, Dewey Dawn, Chris Keyser, Gitaru, Timothy McQuillan, DM Fangorn, Toter, Chris Hastley, That Nice Young Man, Fireless the Wireless, Elliot, NJ Lever, Maxwell Greason, Lane, Kane D, Sam Gardner, Vry Iskainen, Raylan, Alex Sanchez, Squiddo, Slow Dancer, Corey Soto, Raid Shadow Legends, Bindle, Aphadris, Guertena, Lawrence Reich Jr., Legitimate Hap, Nothing Man, Matthew M. Hay, Wyatt Roberson, Caleb Guidry, Radical, Im Hest, Crimson Grain, Biggie Swizz, CG, Dustin the Light, Alex Nelson, Ghost Juice, Tomo, Ya Bull, Ciradoon, Cherry Pez, Toast, Sander, Louis High, Lexi Luke, Joseph Lupo, Mantha065, Jonah, Filthy Kremling, Tyler, Arva Mera, Ride the Buffalo, Leto, Vice Chemo, Gooby, Best Jester, George Lee, DJ Haley Isabella, Dr. Haley Isabella Colley, Motov, Potato, Demigods, Ratboy Slim, Punk Bold, Docile, Hans Witterman, Yepik Kjær, Fool, Thomas Rawling, Gabriel N., Marcos Azevedo, Freya Katra Erlingsdottir, Skanes, V. Belvale, Google Sweet Corn Near Me, Hey Chib, Moody, Guy, Win Gariapi, Befuddled Bacon, Mark McGowan, Daniel Bow, Sticky Rick, Orlon the Dog, Mac, Cassakist, Lose the Booze, Snail Mail, Melty, Cyan, Tibby Gay Cat Pizza Girl, Alexis Ulloa Nunez, Bloody M, Timothy Gallagher, Pritchma, Lumpy Oats, Best Tiger, DeDennis13, 42 Flying Fish, Josh Bays, Granola Barnaby, Ian Hook, Aradia Vitalia Anouk, Francho, AJ, Canyon, Arentios, Norgomder, Pandaroo, Beep, Moonly Tears, Florante de la Cruz, No Man 2000, PH, Mothman, Masked Reader, Hyrax Syriacus, Logan Morgangard, Stev, Guro, Chatan, Vrampter, River, Lily, Snoogmar, Valeria, Charles, Peter Chauvin, Braglion, Brian Smith, Nicholas Hale, Chris Rovers, William Nelson, Emil Vlieskins, Nina Wednesdays, Blight, Soup Clown, Ty Perry, A Fox, Mix Ashes. I am Interface 0101. All I got from this subscription was a discount to my hemorrhoid cream. Rezok, Brian Hahn, James Moore, Cerberus 44, Kirgash Crow, Notorious JMK, Neophyte, I Hardly Know Her, Vivia Doati, Inez, Eureka, Bobika, Banafan, Fopika, Fi, Momika, Eureka, The Wrath, Ryan Frooks, Anub in Disguise, Sunny, Sean Kerner, Michael Dennis Martin, Jim Dark Magic, Rythul, Ad, Dusk, Meat Cloud, Green, Samuel, Memento Mori, Galbatrix, AI Prototype Mark 6, and Kroniki. Thank you.